So good afternoon all. So today's lecture is on psychology, which is introduction part. Psychology as a part of curriculum of your BSc nursing. So we will go through what is psychology and what are the aspects of it. So we will learn about the meaning of psychology, development of psychology, scope, branches, and what are the methods of psychology. Relationship with the other subjects like sociology, significance of psychology in nursing, what a nursing student or as a nurse, what you are expected to do and what you will understand by the psychology. And regarding the applied psychology to solve everyday issues. So first starting with history of psychology. So psychology is an offspring of subject philosophy, and the term psychology is derived from the two terms in the Greek, which means psyche and logos. Psyche means the soul and logos mean the study, like biology, sociology, zoology. Wilhelm Wundt in 1879 opened the first experimental laboratory in the field of psychology at the University of Leipzig, Germany. So he is considered as a father of psychology. He was the first psychologist to measure the human behavior by the means of experimentation accurately. So what is psychology? Psychology is evolution of the field of study from the soul to mind and to the conscious experience and study of behavior. So further, so after psychology we have to understand what is behavior, and behavior refers to the entire life activities and the experiences of the all living organisms, and psychology study both observable behavior and mental processes and covert and overt behavior respectively. So what behavior is? The behavior is the reflection of the mind. What the things are running in the mind is reflected through the behavior of the person. So behavior can include motor or cognitive activities like walking, swimming, dancing, cognitive activities like thinking, reasoning, imagining. These all are the part of the behavior which is executed through the psyche process. Affective activities like feeling happy, feeling sad, angry, these are the part of the behavior which is shown through the means of psychology. So regarding the points of development of psychology, psychology is relative young science with its experimental roots in the 19th century. So 19th century was the time when the psychology was evolving as a experimental science, and before 19th century it was a philosophical context. Generally it was explored issues related to mind through the philosophical ideas, and over the time psychology shifts more towards the scientific study of the behavior. And so control of the variables are introduced after 19th century, so the psychology was becoming an experimental science. What are the scope of psychology? The scope of psychology can be the field of its operations and applications is too vast. So scope may be the branches, topic and subject matter with which it deals are the scope of psychology. It studies, describe and explain the behavior of the living organism. It describe all type of life activities and experiences, as previous slide showed, the cognitive and motor part or affective part of the human behavior, the conscious and unconscious part of the mind, which will be described later in your lectures, what is subconscious, unconscious and preconscious mind. So the scope of psychology can be seen like this. So it studies not only human behavior but also human experiences, the language and other forms of communication. It studies how individuals interact with the society, which comes under the social psychology, and how they behave as a member of the small or the large group. An individual can act as a in another way if by virtue of his own psyche, and may act different by virtue of the psyche of the society. And it implies to all the living creatures created by the Almighty, irrespective of all the variables, socio-demographic variables. So it means that wherever the human being is there, psychology must also be there. With, uh, Without psychology, there is no aspect of the human beings. So it also studies normal psychology and abnormal psychology also, the psychology of children, adolescents, youth and older persons from throughout the lifespan, and it also studies the psychology of criminals, patients, official workers, students, teachers. So different aspect of psychology can be applied upon the uh, different ages of the lifespan to the different kind of educational setups, industrial setups, or educational setups. So scope of psychology is a vast thing which cannot be contained in a smaller manner. So what are the branches of psychology? Psychology can be divided into the pure and the applied psychology. Pure psychology provides the framework, what you known as theory and formulations, principles. So pure psychology is defining all the academic terms, and applied psychology is the theory generated through the pure psychology and find its practical shape. So far as in the different branches, like you may have came across through the physics and applied physics, mathematics and applied mathematics. So the difference is the pure thing is dealing with the written part of the theories, theorem and rules and regulations, and the application of those rules in your life is uh, came out as a applied thing. So in the branches of psychology, pure psychology has various branches like general psychology, abnormal psychology, social psychology, physiological psychology, parapsychology, geopsychology, and like this applied psychology is also having various kind of branches like educational psychology, clinical psychology, which is important in the setup of medical sciences. As you are pursuing your BSc nursing, you will came across more through the the clinical psychology, the industrial psychology, legal, military, and political. So we will go through one by one in a shorter uh, manner. What are the meaning of these branches of psychology? So general psychology deals with the fundamental rules, principles, and theories of psychology in relation to the study of behavior of the normal adult. And abnormal psychology deals with the behavior of individuals who are unusual, and it usually studies the mental disorder, their causes, and the treatment. Social psychology deals with the group behavior and interrelationships of the people with the other people in a smaller or larger group. So it studies various types of group phenomena such as public opinion, attitudes, beliefs, and crowd behavior. How a group communicates, how a group behave with some kind of nosology or with the ideas. So this is the social psychology. Physiological psychology is the branch which describes and explains the biological and physiological basis of the behavior. So it concerns with the structure and function of the sense organ, and how the sense organ is contributing to the behavior of the person. So it intermingles the physiological part and the psychological part of the person. Parapsychology deals with the extrasensory perceptions, cause of rebirth, telepathy, allied problem, or and paranormal phenomena. So this is the part of the parapsychology. Geopsychology is this is the branch of psychology describe and explains the relation of physical environment, particularly weather, climate, or other things of the environment, which imparts its impact on the behavior of the individual group or the other creatures. Developmental psychology studies about the development of the person across the ages. Uh, for example, since the childhood or from the birth to the person, how he is growing and what are the phenomena is being attached to the psyche of the person across his lifespan. Experimental method means the psychology which deals with the experimental part of behavior or phenomena which is inscribed due to the experiment. So you must have heard regarding the experiment of Ivan Pavlov's, like uh, the classical conditioning, the operant behavior. This is the part of the experimental psychology. So you must have heard about the dog and bell experiment, how a dog conditioned to the bell to salivate uh, and to secrete the gastric juices. So this is part of the experimental psychology. What is educational psychology? The branch of this is the branch of applied psychology which tries to apply the psychological principles, theories, and techniques to human behavior in educational situations. So it covers psychological ways and means of improving all the aspect of teaching and learning process. It involves the increase in efficiency of learning in schools by applying psychological knowledge about learning and motivation. So it deals with the betterment of students of a school or college to uh, become a more and more efficient part of the. So the clinical psychology is the largest subfield of psychology. You will find this branch is more important and useful in conditions where mental illnesses are to be dealt with, abnormal behavior of the patient is dealt with. It suggests appropriate treatment and effective adjustment of the affected person in the society. So this is the part of uh, allied part of the department of psychiatry in which where the psychological part to be taken care of. This branch is very helpful in dealing with like relationship problems, marital discord, conduct disorder of the child, or something else which cannot be covered by the drugs only. So this is a very important part of uh, psychiatry. So treatment method which are included in this type of uh, treatment is cognitive therapy, behavior therapy, psychoanalysis, or cognitive behavior therapy, sensitization, desensitization, or are the treatment part for the some or other kind of mental illnesses. So like educational and clinical, there is industrial psychology which deals with the behavior and phenomena which is associated with the industries, and it helps and assists public and private organizations with their hiring and placement programs, training and supervision of their workers, improvement of communication within the organization. So industrial psychology deals with the better communication between the co-workers and the other aspects of the industries. Similarly, there is military psychology and legal psychology. Legal psychology deals with the person who are having touch with the legal aspect of their life, like they may be client, lawyers, or they may be other personnel who needs the legal psychology uh, for their betterment. Military psychology, similarly, it helps in how to keep the morale of the soldiers and citizens high during the wartime, how to secure better recruitment of the personnel with the fighting capacities, organizational climate, and leadership, etc. So, military psychology deals with the aspects of military. Similarly, political psychology, you may have heard about the political science. So this is the political psychology, which relates itself with the use of psychological principles and techniques in studying politics and deriving political gains. So these were the branches of psychology. Now, what are the methods in psychology? How the psychology studies or observes the thing, and what are the methods they use to read the psychological aspect. The method can be introspection or self-observation, observational method of the others, experimental method, survey can be done, clinical or case history method can be used, genetic or developmental method may also be used. So briefly we will go through the each of the method. First is introspection. Introspection is the oldest and fundamental method of psychology. Introspection means to look within, अपने अंदर झांकना. And it is also known as self-observation method. This method systematically observes own behavior and report the same. And since it is not possible to understand the inner feeling and experience of other person, so one can interpret his own feeling and how the person had behaved or is behaving because of the uh, that cross-sectional time of the psyche of the person. So this can be done by self-observation. So advantages are economical and cheap. It gives us direct, immediate and exact knowledge, enables us to fully understand the behavior of individual, easy and doesn't require any apparatus or laboratory, helps in development of method like observation and experimentation. The disadvantages are, the disadvantages are the data collected cannot be verified, highly subjective. It is depends on the subjective mind of that person who is introspecting himself, and the people may not be describe the things accurately. So it is not applicable for children, animals, or mentally retarded people who cannot think of on their own, who cannot analyze their own psyche and the execution of behavior because of that psyche. So these are the disadvantages. The second is observational method. In this method, objective method of studying the behavior of the other individuals. In this method, observer observes and collects the data of the people by observing them, and it consists of perception of individuals' behavior by the other individuals' behavior, interpretation and analysis. The advantages are this is economical, natural and flexible. Data can be analyzed, measured, classified and interpreted. Result can be verified and relied. It is quite suitable for observing developmental characteristics like children habit and interest. So you can take a sample of sample size of your defined population for your study, or you can observe that the behavior of the that group of the people. So if you want to analyze the behavior or psyche of a group of people of 6 to 7 years of age, or like teenagers from 13 to 19 years of age, or of adult of middle age group, so you can define your population, you can observe the behavior, and you can give the answer of your hypothesis or questions. So disadvantages are it lacks repeatability. The things cannot be repeated. If you are observing one person passively, so they have acted upon that psyche and showed some kind of behavior. That thing cannot be repeated because it is not a controlled experimental thing, and it cannot establish a proper cause and effect relationship also. And chances of subjective report and also prejudice of the observer may affect. This means the observer may have their notion in their mind, so they can interpret by virtue of his own uh, psyche which is running in his mind at the time of observation. So this can be a mismatch of the actual situation. Experimental method means this is the most scientific and objective method of studying behavior. The use of this method has raised psychology to the status of experimental science like physics, chemistry, physiology and other controlled branches of science. So these studies used to study the cause and effect relationship. The cause of the behavior and the effect of that cause can be make out from these studies. And psychologists use objective observation under the control condition to observe action or behavior of the individual. This means some kind of instrument or some kind of gadget or some thing is required to experiment uh, with this method. So this method is experimental method. The example I have given like classical conditioning and operant conditioning, if you know about this, And if you don't know about the classical conditioning and operant conditioning, you will came across through these in your next few lectures. So advantages are, these method is only means by which cause and effect can be established. It is scientific method. Experiments can be repeated. So repetition is can be observed in experimental method, which cannot be observed in observational method. It allows the precise control of variables. So in the instrument, you can precisely set the things to observe the behavior of the person. The disadvantages are, all problems of psychology cannot be studied. This can a smaller part of psychology can be studied in the experimental method, which can be controlled by virtue of the instrument. It is costly and time consuming. Handling of this method demands specialized knowledge and skill. Experiments may harm the subjects and fail to study behavior in the natural conditions. So the behavior cannot be studied in natural condition because of the experimental style. So in experimental method, what are the steps is to be used? Like first have to state the problem. State the problem means you have to raise a question, and on the basis of that question you want to study, you can formulate a hypothesis, and for that hypothesis you have to find independent and dependent variables, arranging the environment to the statement of the problem, analysis of the results, and the testing of hypothesis by the result of the experiment can be done in the experimental method. Survey method, you all know regarding the survey. You sometime over there may across through the surveys of various companies on your internet, like surveys of the YouTube, surveys of the Google. You may find the surveys of many a company on, or maybe from the your academic side, you may be given a survey to complete regarding your university, regarding your idealization, regarding or you may be a part of the survey method from any other organization. This is regarding the survey. So survey can be done upon the large population at the smaller part of time. It is cost effective and broad range of data can be collected. So you can flash your Google form to the various people in a flash, and you can collect the data in a shorter period of time. So disadvantages are, respondents may not give the honest answer. This is a big problem with this survey experimentation. The poor reliability and validity of the survey form, and the behavior is not observed directly. Someone has to answer the questionnaire from the remote side, so you cannot see the behavior, the emotions, or and the other thing in this method. Clinical or case history method. This method used by the clinical psychologist, psychiatrist, psychiatric social worker in the child guidance clinic, or mental hygiene clinics, or in the psychiatry OPD, or in the allied institute. So this is the history taking part. You have to uh, one has to take the history, and on the basis of that history one can formulate why this behavior is there, or why it is being happened. So one can find the treatment on basis of this clinical history. Advantages: very effective and used in treatment of problematic children. Childhood behavioral disorder are very much can be understood by this method, by history taking. Case studies will give the clinician an insight into the cause of the problem, and a suggested possible solution can be make out. So case study can be productive source of ideas for further investigation by the other method. The disadvantage is time consuming. The method depends largely on the memory of the incidents. So whosoever giving the history, or whosoever giving the behavioral pattern of the individual, so this can be flawed by virtue of the memory of the person. So how effectively he can retrieve his memory, how the things can be formulated. So similarly, the last one is genetic and developmental method. This method deals with the development of birth to death, the influence of hereditary environment in the development of person, and conditions favorable and unfavorable of the normal or abnormal behavior. So what is happening around you? So the environmental factor, the genetic factor, plays a role. So this part of psychology, or this part of method of psychology, is try to connect the genetical and developmental method to the behavior of the person or psyche of the person. So this can be done in two ways: cross-sectional study and longitudinal study. So one can see uh, the children of different age groups will be studied simultaneously. In the cross section, uh, you can have 10 similar age group of child in a group, and you can study them. And the longitudinal study is the same person you are observing for the period of time in their lifespan. So this method is more useful to understand the behavior from point of view of hereditary and environmental influences. This method is time and energy consuming is the disadvantages. Now the relationship with other subjects. So uh, as I have said, wherever there is human being, psychology is always there, whatever the setup it is. So psychology is related with the sociology also, likewise political science, educational system, medical science, business, industry and economy, criminology and military sciences, philosophy and anthropology. So psychology is you will find psychology everywhere, uh, whatever the other subjects are. So now it is the important part. What is the significance of psychology in nursing? This is the thing which you have to give more attention to. So understanding the psychology of a patient, a nurse will be able to communicate better with them in terms of inquiring about their pain as well as psychological trauma, if any. So if you know about the psychology, you will be able to more effectively communicate and more effectively uh, able to fetch the information, more effectively formulate the diagnosis, formulate the cause and effect of the what the person is being suffered from, you can make out. And this is because of the increasing emphasis being laid out in the interplay of body, mind and spirit. This means the everything is connected, like body and mind are not separate thing. The psyche, the mind of the person, and the various faculties of his mind somewhere is related to the body of the person. So learning psychology uh, helps a nurse in following ways. The points can be to understand her own self. So you will able to understand yourself also. So how you are looking, how you are watching, how you are observing the other person. You should also know about the your own self. Okay. To understand the patient, to recognize the abnormal behavior. Please don't talk. Recognize the abnormal behavior. To recognize the abnormal behavior of the others. Okay. To understand the other people. So so to understand the other people who is around the patient के around, other people will also be there, like their family members, their friends, and they are very much concerned with the health of the patient. So you have to deal with those people also to provide quality care to the patient. If you understand the psyche of the this situation, you can help the patient to have quality care, help the patient to adjust to the situation. Some situations you can change, some situation you cannot change. So it also helps the student nurse to the necessity for changing the environment and surrounding. Help for the effective studying. Your study will be more effective if you know your own psychology. Readjustment to the situation. If the situation is not changeable, you can readjust to the new situation, which has a different setup. So, to understand your own self, help to get an insight into your own motives, desires, emotions, feelings, attitudes, personal characteristics, and ambitions. So, you know about yourself, and it helps to to understand your strengths and weaknesses. It will develop good personality characteristic to carry on your own responsibilities to perform your duties effectively and efficiently. This enables you to control situation and attain self-discipline. So for understanding the patient, it helps the nurse to understand the problems and need of the patients and to attend to them. She can understand the motives, attitude, perception and personality and other parts in a better way. So it helps the patient to attain quick relief and cure. To recognize abnormal behavior. When you know about the abnormal behavior, what kind of abnormal behavior can be there, if you know, you can deal it with in a better way and helps the patient in recognizing and managing of the mental illnesses. It provides appropriate guidance to deal with stress, anxiety and other life problems. So to understand other people with the scientific knowledge of human nature, you will understand the things better to live with other, your colleagues, your seniors, juniors and your subordinates and with the family members also. It helps to achieve great success in interpersonal relationship. Your interpersonal relationship will be better. This make you able to differentiate your likes, dislikes, your interest and your abilities or in their reaction to others. This means you will not impose your interest and your abilities, your understanding onto the patient. For example, in case of a patient with the gender dysphoria means the person is uh, if he or she is assigned biologically as male and female and he find himself of the other gender, this is gender dysphoria or identity problem. You will be able not to impose your own ideas onto that person. This will make you to remain in a neutral position. It will also help you to differentiate in behavior by virtue of the customs and cultural patterns of the groups. By the knowledge of psychology, you will be able to provide a quality care of the patient with good a nurse with a good knowledge of human psychology can understand the patient's inner feeling, like if the patient is having anxiety or he become panic or fearful, the patient's behavior and the patient's feeling, and you will be able to anticipate and meet the requirement of the patients and their relatives. So it helps patients and relatives adjust to the unavoidable circumstances in best possible way. So they will understand what are the impending features that, which may trigger anxiety, which may trigger aggressiveness, or which may trigger other unwanted behavior. The person who are around the patient will able to know this thing. So it helps patient adjust to the situation. Illness and physical handicap so often bring about the need of major adjustment, and many diseases like heart disease, cancer, this requires a special coping skill and health care. So as a nurse trained in psychology, you can be an effective health educator and help in these kinds of adjustments. Yeah. So it also helps student nurse to necessity for changing the environment and surrounding. So good nursing care depends upon the ability of a nurse to understand the situation and also obtaining the cooperation of other people concerned, and they can change the environment sometime necessary for better adjustment and the happiness. It also helpful in effective studying. So as a nurse, you have to learn many new things during your training. He or she has to obtain the correct knowledge of various facts, disease condition and their treatment. The study of psychology of learning will help the nurse acquiring knowledge in effective way. When you will know about yourself, you will be able to modify yourself accordingly and for the uh, better understanding of the subject. Readjustment. Every profession and career requires readjustment. If you go into the new situation, you have to readjust yourself to the new situation, and you will find some difficulties, but you have to overcome your homesickness, and you have to become self-reliant, and which is needed for your smooth living in the hostel or the hospital setting. Adjusting to the sick person, you will be now find yourself surrounded by the sick persons, and who may cry, may be desperate, or even ventilate their anger, making the nurse a target of their abuse and the cures. So you will be able to handle all these situations, all the good and bad ventilation of the patient or their relatives. So this is somewhat end part of this lecture. This is regarding the applied psychology to solve everyday issues. So it addresses problem and develop practical solutions to some of the toughest challenge facing society today. History of applied psychology is like the founder of applied psychology was Hugo Munsterberg. His research book is on the witness stand, which is related to the applied psychology. He was one of the first people to explain and applied psychology to education, industrial efficiency, business, and teaching. So areas of applied psychology can be clinical psychology, counseling psychology, evolutionary psychology. You will have a lecture on this, evolutionary psychology, industrial and organizational, legal psychology, neuropsychology, occupational health psychology, human factors, engineering, social, school psychology, sports psychology, community psychology, medical psychology. So psychology is the need of every aspect of your life. The values of applied psychologies are efficiency. So you will be efficient to deal with the situation. Objectivity. So you are not subjective towards your target. You will be objective because of the knowledge of psychology. This will value the relationship, interpersonal relationship, empathy for the persons, healthy mentality, and open-mindedness while you are dealing with such situations. It improves communication skills, build relationships, enrich the career, and it increases the self-confidence and gaining insight into people's behavior. So you will not be stunned why the person is reacting like in awkward manner. One becomes a better communicator after studying the psychology, learning to better understand others, make more accurate decisions, and become more productive. The uses of psychology are, it has been used in teaching psychology because it is focused on scientific findings and how it can be used to transfer that behavior. So many people who use applied psychology work in fields of teaching, industrial and clinical and consulting work areas. So psychology is the integral part of the every aspect or every industry or every work situation or educational aspect. So applied psychology is applied everywhere. It also helps to promote green behavior, that is sustainable development and behavior modification. Green behavior means a cool and soothing environment, to how not to make the environment toxic or very difficult to live with. It is applied on the world scale with the aim of population control. Example, using advertisements are used to curb the population growth and like this. This can also be used to increase the female education literacy rate. So ethics is also a part of your doings, and it is about the difference between what you have right to do, what rights you have to do some work, and what is the right to do. So in the first line, the right is for your uh, what is your what is called as your adhikar, आपके अधिकार क्या है, आप क्या कर सकते हैं, and what is the right path to do is the second aspect. So ethics is assimilation or amalgamation of the values, the research, moral principles of yours, ethical practices, rules of conduct, and rules and regulation by virtue of which you act upon. So this is the slide for ethics. So thank you for your attention. So this was the introductory class for psychology, and what the psychology contains, I have explained in a very short manner and very precisely, so that one can have an idea what the psychology means. So more elaborative lectures will come soon, and every week we have lectures at 2 to 3. So thanks for your patient listening. Now we can have question answer session. If anybody has question in their mind,